There is a kind of fear that doesn't come from a monster. It comes from something smaller. The sense that you are not alone in your own home, that someone has been where you sleep, that the footsteps overhead are not the house settling. The people I'm about to tell you about felt that fear for days before they died. They told their neighbors. They heard it in the walls. They found the evidence in the snow. And they stayed anyway. This is the story of a small farm in Germany, a family of 6, and a killer who, after doing what they came to do, did not leave. They stayed for days, living among the dead. 100 years later, we still don't know who they were. The farm sat alone at the edge of the woods, a short walk from a quiet Bavarian village. It didn't even have a real name of its own. People just called it by the land it stood on. Far enough from the village that if you screamed, no one would hear you. Close enough that you'd think you were safe. 6 people lived there in the spring of 1922. There was the old farmer and his wife, hard, private people who kept to themselves. There was their widowed daughter who had come home with her 2 young children, a little girl of 7 and a boy who was barely 2. And there was a maid, newly hired, who had just arrived to help with the work. I want you to hold on to them as people, not names in an old file. The 7-year-old who liked to play, the 2-year-old who couldn't yet form full sentences, a mother trying to raise them on a lonely patch of farmland. Ordinary people, the kind of people nothing is supposed to happen to. But in the weeks before the end, something began happening. It started with small things, the kind of things you talk yourself out of. The farmer told people that he had found footprints in the snow, a single set of tracks leading out of the forest across the open field, straight to the farm. And here is the detail that has kept people awake for a century. There were no tracks leading back. Whoever had walked out of those woods had come to the house and had not left. Then other things. He found a newspaper in the house that no one in the family had bought. He heard footsteps in the attic, walking above him, when everyone was accounted for below. The house keys went missing. And one night, he saw a face he didn't recognize at the edge of the property. And then it was gone. The maid who had worked there before had quit weeks earlier. She told people the farm was haunted, that she heard voices, footsteps, sounds with no source. People thought she was a nervous girl making excuses, but now the farmer was hearing it too. Think about what that certainty would feel like. Not a vague unease, actual footsteps, actual tracks in the snow, a newspaper that appeared from nowhere. The slow, cold understanding that someone has been inside your home, and may still be. He told neighbors about it. He talked about the sounds in the attic. And still, he did not leave. Maybe he didn't have anywhere to go. Maybe a lifetime on that land made it impossible to imagine abandoning it. Maybe he simply couldn't believe it would go as far as it did. The new maid arrived to work at the farm on a Friday. She would be dead within hours of nightfall. Here is what we can piece together about how it happened. Not because anyone saw it, because of where the bodies were found. The killer, it seems, waited. In the barn. In the dark. Patient. And then, one by one, the family was drawn out to them. We don't know exactly what lure was used. A sound outside. An animal disturbed. Something ordinary enough that you'd go and check. But one at a time, the adults walked from the house toward the barn, and one at a time, they did not come back. The old farmer, his wife, their daughter, a 7-year-old girl. 4 of them, led out into the dark and killed in the barn, stacked together and covered. Then the killer walked back to the house, because 2 were still inside. The maid, in her room, and the 2-year-old boy, in his cot beside his mother's empty bed. They were killed where they lay. The weapon was a farm tool, something with an edge, something that would already have been on the property. Nothing brought from outside, nothing that would be missed. Whoever did this used what the family themselves owned. By the time the house went quiet, everyone who lived there was dead. And this is where the story stops being a murder and becomes something else. The killer did not leave. We know this. This is not speculation. In the days that followed, the neighbors noticed things from a distance and told themselves ordinary stories. Smoke rose from the chimney. Someone was feeding the fire. The livestock had been fed. The animals were cared for, fed and watered day after day by someone moving calmly around that farm. A neighbor later said they'd seen smoke and thought nothing of it. The mail carrier left letters that were taken in. Everything, from the outside, looked like a family going about its life. But the family was in the barn, and in their beds. Someone was living in that house, eating there, sleeping there, keeping the fire lit and the animals alive, walking past the bodies, or worse, keeping them where they were on purpose, for days. I want you to sit with that image, because it's the one that never leaves people. Not the killing, the after. Someone making themselves at home in a house full of the dead, warming their hands at the same fire. In no hurry at all. What kind of person does that? What are they thinking in the quiet, day after day? What did they want? We don't know. We have never known. It was several days before anyone came close enough to worry. The little girl hadn't been at school. The family had missed events in the village. A mechanic who'd been expected never got his answer at the door. And people began to say to each other, "Has anyone actually seen them?" Finally, a few men from the village walked out to the farm to check. They found the 4 in the barn first, covered, together. And then they went into the house and found the last 2. And they found the signs of the visitor. Food that had been eaten, a bed that had been slept in, the fire, the fed animals, all the small evidence of a life continuing inside a house where no life remained. Whoever had done it was gone by then, slipped back into the woods they'd come from, or into the village, or into an ordinary life somewhere none of us will ever find. Here is the hardest part to accept. This case was investigated, heavily, for years, for decades. Hundreds of people were questioned. The theories were chased down, one after another, generation after generation. Investigators returned to it again and again, long after everyone who'd known the family was gone, and it was never solved. We don't know who walked out of those woods. We don't know why they chose this family. We don't know why they stayed afterward. We don't know if it was someone the family had wronged, or someone they'd never met, or someone they saw every single day and trusted. There were suspicions. There always are. Old grudges. Money. Family secrets that neighbors whispered about. But suspicion isn't proof. And after 100 years, everyone who could have confessed is long dead. And the truth went into the ground with them. What we're left with is the evidence in the snow. A single set of footprints, walking out of the forest, toward a house. And none walking back. I keep coming back to the days before. The family knew. That's what stays with me. They heard the footsteps in the attic. They found the tracks. They saw the face at the edge of the trees. They told people. They knew something was wrong in their own home. And the thing they were afraid of was already inside the walls with them, waiting for the dark. We lock our doors at night against the outside. We tell ourselves that safe is a place, that if we can just get home, get inside, we're okay. This family was home. They were inside. The doors were locked. It didn't matter, because the fear wasn't outside trying to get in. It was already there, and it was in no hurry to leave. This is the first of many, a channel for dark stories, the eerie, the unexplained, the ones that stay with you. Some true, some told around the fire. If this one got under your skin, subscribe so you're here for the next. Leave a like and tell me in the comments what you think really happened. This is only the beginning. Until next time, lock your doors.